Good evening and welcome to ELOSOFUMARTAKES. This is our 42nd take. I'm your host, Bear Duplessis, as always, live from the Casa Favilli studios of Euless, Texas. One of those special takes that it's kind of like you're really excited, but you also don't know where it's going to go. And I'm just going to go ahead and get started with it right away. And I'm welcoming in Mr. Maali of Patina Cigars. Mo, how you doing tonight?
Good, brother. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic, Knew you'd be representing the South Side, so I had to
Yes.
I had to get all fancied up myself as well.
I don't blame. I mean, at least you could wear that with pride. Right now, we're not very good.
Man, you broke up a little bit. Can you say that again? I know you're probably talking trash, though.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. No, I said at least you could wear that with pride. We're not very good. So.
Well, you actually, I mean, maybe not today, and maybe not tomorrow, but the White Sox are going to be good again, man. I mean, the King's ransom that you got from us for Chris Sale, for example. I mean, Yoan Moncada's doing pretty well for you guys. I mean, he could work on his batting average a bit, but I mean, other than that, he's
fun. Yeah.
But hey, we were just talking about this before we got started. They're calling up Michael Kopech. He's your number 2 prospect. He was in that Sale deal as well, so that's pretty exciting.
You know, it's funny, man. I saw this. There was this thing on FS1 Sports or whatever before the season started, and they were detailing his workout regimen and stuff like. So he was down in Texas actually training and stuff, and for the season. And it's one thing to have talent, but when you have a younger guy that puts in that kind of work and is coming through with that kind of talent, you know you're in for something special, in my opinion.
It is really exciting to see, especially. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, we hear the term all the time. There's a 5 cent, $1 million talent and a 5 cent head, and there's enough of those guys out there, But
yeah.
But I mean, more and more, we're starting to see players really take themselves seriously even at a young age. Guys that I'm thinking of, I think of like Mike Trout. And he's arrogant as hell, but I mean his workout regimen is insane. As Bryce Harper, Jake Arrieta is another guy. I went to school with Jake. We went to TCU together.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, and that guy was a specimen. In fact, Matt Carpenter who's on this incredible tear right now for the Cardinals. Him and I went to school.
Yeah, I thought he was from Oklahoma.
Yes. What's that?
I thought he was from Oklahoma, or did you go to college together?
We went to college together. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we went to college together at TCU. So everyone's shocked when I tell people this, but Matt Carpenter, like if you look at him right now, he's a slender guy. I mean, he's got some build to him, but he's a slender guy. Matt Carpenter was a little round in college, man. He was pretty chubby. I'm not gonna lie, man. When he first got called up to the Cardinals, like I did a double take. I was like, that's not the same Matt Carpenter that was that's in the organization from TCU? And sure enough, it was. Jake Arrieta and the coach at TCU, Jim Schlossnagle, had talked Matt Carpenter into actually, having a healthy lifestyle, and it really blossomed his career and gave him the opportunity that he has today. And now he's playing in the major leagues and playing at an insanely high level for a number of years now. So it's, but yeah,
you're right. He's a very good player that you don't.
Yeah, so it's crazy that these, like we said, these younger guys are just working out a lot more and really taking themselves seriously, which is pretty awesome. So, are there any players that you're like a really big fan of right now on the White Sox?
It's funny. We were talking about Reynaldo Lopez. His number, he hasn't pitched phenomenally, but to watch a guy that has that kind of movement on his pitches is always fun for me. Whoever it is. I mean, if you look at Greg Maddux when we were growing up, I mean, you're talking about a guy that's pitching like 89 miles an hour at the top end. But the way that ball moves, or Mariano Rivera, I mean, with one pitch, what he was able to accomplish. Reynaldo Lopez has I don't know if he's going to be as good as those guys, but he has the talent to be a top level pitcher. But watching that guy's movement on his pitches is always really fun for me.
Yeah, he definitely has. He definitely has some great stuff. You know, the stuff as they kind of, you know, as they say,
Right.
when it comes to scouts and stuff. When the way the scouts portray baseball players and everything. But just to kind of move this along, so people, we are going to talk cigars tonight. So let's go ahead and do that. But so I am really interested to hear, and I think our viewers would be interested here as well, is that, you know, this partnership that Patina has with Mombacho didn't, you know, isn't something that like came about in the traditional fashion. You didn't necessarily work for Claudio or work there at Mombacho before, or, you know, you weren't, you know, I don't know. And I'm pretty sure that you guys don't go way back or anything like that. It was kind of looking for some place to make Patina cigars, and you ultimately decided on Mombacho. Tell us a little bit what that process was like.
Okay, so it was funny how it happened, really. And you know, it's always fun to look back and talk about where you started. And if you backtrack even further than that, I used to do a cigar blog called Sultans of Smoke with my buddy Drew. And so the first experience I ever got with stuff related to cigars was when we made a cigar with James Brown when he opened Oveja Negra. So we had him make a cigar for our blog. And that was really the catalyst into making me want to pursue something more and make it kind of a full-time profession, if you will. And so we went down to Nicaragua. I was introduced to Mombacho through a mutual connection, let's say. And they were kind of skeptical at first, not going to lie to you. They were like, okay, well, what do you want to do? How can we take you seriously? So they basically interviewed me, essentially.
So you were interviewing them, and they were interviewing you. It was
right. Yeah, and I'll never forget, man, they were like, well, we don't really make cigars for people, so we sat down, and I really wanted to work with Claudio because of what I had heard about him, his having come from Davidoff, and he's not afraid to do a bunch of different stuff. He's not afraid to try things that are outside of like what you would normally consider status quo, right? I knew that we could be creative with blends and creative with what we did in terms of marketing and being out of Casa Favilli. So that was all very important to me. And so we ended up, you know, talking for a couple of days, and I'll never forget, we went to this restaurant in Granada. And so Casa Favilli is in Granada. It's not in Esteli. I'm not sure how many people know that, but that's Casa Favilli is the factory of Mombacho where Patina is made. So that's, and so we go out to dinner, man, and there's this like sign on this restaurant bar that basically says, life brings people together to do great things. And I showed them that sign, and everything kind of like got really, I'm not gonna say smooth after that, but certainly they were more open to it. It was kind of weird how that happened. And yeah, so that was how it kind of started. And the conversation switched to, all right, well, what do you want to do? What's your ideas? Are you doing this full time? Is this a hobby for you? And I had dedicated essentially the rest of my career to trying to make this work, and stepped away from my corporate job. And so when we decided to launch Patina, they had asked me, do you want to sell Mombacho on the road while you go sell Patina? I said, yeah, you don't got to twist my arm for that. So that's where we're at today.
That's fantastic, man. Claudio is one of those guys that, you know, I've had the opportunity to interview him as well. And he's one of those guys that has this almost insatiable appetite for trying different things. And again, like you said, status quo is not something that I don't think it's in his vocabulary, actually. Just some of the stuff that we've talked about and some of the stuff that they're pursuing with Mombacho specifically and everything. Because of that kind of adventurous spirit in the master blending. Because a lot of times you don't necessarily see that when it comes to a lot of master blenders. You know, there's a lot of guys that are kind of just like, you know, keeping a lot of the standard stuff kind of going and everything, without venturing out too much. Which kind of leads me to my question about Patina Cigars. Now, you've got two lines right now. You've got the Connecticut and Habano, two, again, you know, on the surface, two kind of status quo lines. But inside these blends is anything but status quo. What was it like when you? Let's talk about the Connecticut first. What was it like when you first smoked the Connecticut, the Connecticut as it is released to market, with those Pennsylvania and Nicaraguan tobaccos inside of them, and the binder and filler? What went through your mind when he said, "Here's a Connecticut, I want you to try," or when you guys were working together on that project? What was your reaction?
So before we did Pennsylvania, it was actually Brazilian that we worked into it. And
Really?
that didn't work. So, or at least, or at least the way we had it. So Claudio was like, "Man, there's something else we could try." We wanted to make something different, right? I mean, it's not. You didn't want to take away the essence of a Connecticut. What you wanted to do was put a twist on what people thought a Connecticut was.
Right.
It wasn't trying to necessarily like make a Connecticut not a Connecticut anymore. You know what I'm saying? It
Right.
was like, how do we take this classic cigar and make it really good on a different level? You know, and
Absolutely.
that was our goal. That was our goal. And so we used the Pennsylvania to give it that little kick that it has. Each size is blended a little bit differently. So if you're going through the line, you will have a similar but unique experience with every Vitola. And right now I'm smoking the Churchill, which is my personal favorite size. And a lot of guys shy away from the Churchill, but it really, with the ring gauge and the length, man, it really is a good combination with the way the blend worked out. So.
Yeah, you know, it's funny that you mentioned the Churchill, which is actually the you call it the artifact, right? It's the 7x49, right? The I loved you handed me that in both the Connecticut and the Habano at the trade show this year, and I absolutely love Churchills. I love the smaller gauge but longer cigar. It makes for a much cooler smoke. Actually, this is the Habano, but this is the bronze. This is the Toro size. The Churchill.
Okay.
Yeah. So but you did hand me the Churchill for the Connecticut that I smoked in the picture that I posted earlier today.
Yep.
Fantastic size, especially for that Pennsylvania tobacco that just really brings, like you said, like a lot to the blend. It's not, and I love, and I've talked about this many times on the show, Mo, I love what the industry is doing with Connecticut. They are completely shying away and completely going against the grain and really bringing a lot of cool stuff to the table. And you and Claudia are no different with this blend. I think it's fantastic. What the Nicaraguan tobaccos that are in it, though, are you guys using a combination of like the major regions, or is it 100% Esteli, or what kind of, or is there a secret sauce that I'm not supposed to be asking about here?
No, it's just two different regions, Jalapa and Esteli, and Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Nothing secret about it, man.
Awesome. You know, I love what Jalapa does to a blend, because Nicaraguan tobacco always has that. There's a lot of great spiciness to it and different types of spices from regions. But Jalapa specifically, to me, always brings a really nice sweetness to accompany that spice. And it's just really balanced tobacco, in my opinion. So it really brings a lot of balance to a blend. And with that stronger Pennsylvania tobacco that's in there, with the creaminess of the Connecticut, I mean, just outstanding stuff. So
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
Which one were you guys working on first? Was it Connecticut or the Habano, or what were you guys working on first?
Simultaneously. Yeah, and was funny because anybody that knows Mombacho knows that Mombacho are 100% Nicaraguan. So this was the first time that the factory was going to make a cigar that was not 100% Nicaraguan.
Okay.
And that was really exciting, I feel like, in a nice branching out of for the factory itself, right? To be able to put out cigars that were different than what, let's say, the house cigars are, right? So, Tierra Volcán Liga Maestra, 100% Nicaraguan. And then here comes this brand out of the factory that's, Ecuador, it's Pennsylvania, it's Connecticut, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was pretty cool, man. And that was fun. But yeah, we worked on both of them together. And the Habano was a little bit easier than the Connecticut in terms of what we were going for. But when people always ask me, well, what the Habano to me is kind of like, it's going to give you that full flavor without knocking you out. And it's one of those cigars that literally you could smoke, finish, and then pick up another one and smoke it right behind. And that really is what I want to go with for the whole line. And even as I introduce the Connecticut Broadleaf next year, in that too, the goal is to have people want to smoke another cigar when they finish the patina. That it doesn't necessarily overtake your palate or anything like that. That it leaves you wanting more, if you will, and not in a bad way. I mean, in a good way.
No, absolutely, of course. No,
Right.
I think that that's a really great description of that, especially when I was smoking the Connecticut. It was a cigar that it actually wasn't my first cigar of the day, and usually I smoke lighter as the day starts and I move up throughout the day and everything. But that was a cigar that I think at the time, I think it was my third cigar for the day, and so my palate was pretty well warmed up and everything. And I am. What's that?
Warmed up, funny. I'm going to use that one. Oh, my palate's warmed up.
My palate was warmed up. Yes, absolutely. So
yeah. Give me the closer.
And but I really enjoyed it, and I don't think any of the complexity escaped me or anything. I think I really was able to enjoy it for what it was, and I still wanted to continue smoking after that. In fact, I wish I had another one to light up actually at the time, but it was just one of those, like I said, it was just one of those really balanced blends, and I really like what the industry's doing with Connecticut's right now, and you guys are certainly no different from that. So really, really well done. Really well done.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, Claudio's awesome to work with, man. Yeah, he's legit.
Those Liga Maestros right now, they are smoking good. Holy crap! Talking about I actually had a conversation with Steve Saka over that week at IPCPR, and we were talking about how different cigars, just in general, we were talking specifically about one of his, but he was saying he's like, you go around the room and you can actually find cigars that are like really smoking really well now as opposed to like a year ago. Like they were good a year ago, but they're sensational now. And we were talking about how that's kind of interesting. And cause I had my first Liga Maestro, not too long ago, actually. It was when we interviewed Claudio on the show with Coop, and then I smoked one that Rob gave me at the show, and holy crap. I remembered it being good. I just didn't remember it being that good. And it was phenomenal. They're smoking fantastic right now. Would you? Okay, so here's so okay, because I know working with Claudio, you've probably nerded out with him on occasion about aging cigars and aging tobacco. So here's my question, because I have this theory, because I age a bunch of my cigars because I nerd out on that kind of stuff, and I've come around to this theory. Now this isn't like a fast rule, okay? It's not like set in stone. It's not it's not 100% of the time, but to me, lighter wrap cigars, your Connecticut's, your Habanos, and so forth, to me, age much more consistently and produce a better aged cigar experience overall versus darker cigars, whether it's Oscuro or Maduro. Do you have an opinion on that? And then I'm going to ask you about your cigar here in a second. I wanted to hear your thoughts on that.
Man, I would tend to agree with that based on my own personal experience, even as a consumer. Like if I wanted to age, like let's say a Cuban, Cubans age very well. Now part of that's Cuban tobacco, sure, I get that. But I feel like the smoother, less powerhouse cigars, if you will, tend to age a little bit better, in my opinion. Which are usually cigars that also have a lighter wrapper, Habano, a Connecticut, a Corojo, whatever, than some of those darker wrappers.
Yeah, it's really interesting to me. It's something that I found. Again, it's not a hard and fast rule by any stretch. I've had a lot of terrific, I've had a lot of aged Maduros and Oscuros for that matter that age incredibly well. So to that point, what's the oldest Patina Connecticut that you've smoked? And is it, in your opinion, has it gotten better? Has it stayed the same, or have you noticed a little drop off?
The one I'm smoking right now, I want to say is about a year old. I have some original stuff from that would probably be almost 2 years old, but I haven't smoked it. I'm going to smoke it at the 2-year mark.
Right. Okay.
So I want to see what it's like 2 years later. Yeah, I mean, but they've really come into their own based on consumer feedback, and I found that one of the things about what comes out of Casa Favilli in totality, whether it's the Mombacho stuff or Patina stuff, is that our cigars age very well. And that's something I'm very proud about, that somebody could buy a box today and smoke them throughout over time, and they're going to continue to get better for them. I truly believe that, and I stand by that for sure.
Mo, you broke up on that last part. We are having a little bit of connection issue, everyone. We really appreciate your patience. Mo, I want you to say that last part again because I didn't hear all of it, and I want to make sure everyone hears it because I know it was probably some really good stuff. If you don't mind.
Yeah, I was just saying that I'm very proud to say that the stuff that comes out of Casa Favilli, whether it's Mombacho or the Patina, the stuff ages very well. If you're looking for a cigar, now, it's something that I stand by, that these cigars get better with time. And not that they're not good when you buy them, obviously, but I feel comfortable if somebody says, Mo, I'm going to buy a box and I'm going to let it sit. I'm not worried about that person coming back to me and saying, like, man, these really dropped off. I get excited for them. I'm like, dude, that's great because they're only going to get better. And I truly believe that with our cigars. They go from great to even greater.
Well, I think you kind of have to. I mean, with a name like Patina, man, I mean, it's got to get better with age, right? I mean, without getting
age, well, I might as well, I might as well call it toddler. I mean,
with not getting too punny around here, but with Patina cigars, they should age well. But so okay, let's talk about that real quick. So Patina, for those people who don't know what Patina is, it's a chemical reaction that happens typically with copper, bronze, some other metals, where the color of Mohs labels, or the part of the color of Mohs labels, this teal, like kind of color comes out of this metal. You see it on pennies all the time. You see it on landmarks and monuments that have bronze or copper. It's a chemical reaction that occurs through oxidation of that metal and everything, and they call it patina. And so for those of you who wanted a quick chemistry lesson, there you go. That's what it is. But Mo, why did you decide that this was going to be the name for your cigars? What was the inspiration behind that?
So let's backtrack a little bit. I don't know why I keep backtracking, but do you remember that scene in Major League where Bob Uecker is like, and if any of you haven't noticed, and judging by the attendance numbers, you haven't, the Indians, and he talks about what place they're in or something like that.
Right.
I don't know if you remember that scene.
Yeah, of course.
But it's kind of like, and then you were like, for those of you that don't know what patina is, and I was going to continue, and judging by the reactions of people, many people don't know what patina is. And which is kind of funny to me because we see it all the time, right? I mean, the Statue of Liberty is not really green. I mean, that's patina on the Statue of Liberty, right?
Right.
And so, yeah, patina, like you said, a result of the oxidation process. But where it came from was we all have our own patina, right? Like our life experiences are our patina. You know, these things shape us. They cause us to transform or to mold into different. Like we're not the same. I'm not the same guy I was at 10 years old, at 20 years old, at 30 years old. We're continually changing, and those life experiences cover us. But underneath, we're all still who we are, right? Inside, we are who we are.
Of course,
and that's kind of like it's kind of like patina. Patina covers something, a monument. It is part of a process that causes that to happen. But underneath that patina, that monument is still that monument. It's still the Statue of Liberty. It's still a sculpture of George Washington or whatever the case may be. So that's kind of how I look at it, how I equate it anyway.
That's really deep, man. And I sound kind of tongue in cheek when I say that, but I don't mean that at all. I think that's really something. I'm a big story guy, and I've said this several times on the shows that I'm really big on journeys and how stories from our past kind of mold us into who we are today and everything. And I think the name Patina definitely brings out that special journey that you specifically have taken, along with Claudio and Mombacho Cigars, to create this blend. It's really fantastic. Right now you've got two lines. You guys you will be releasing a third. So Connecticut Broadleaf. Was there any reason you guys why you specifically wanted to?
Why I wanted to do Broadleaf?
I know you're probably just wanting to kind of build the brand and fill gaps in the portfolio, but was there a reason that you decided on Broadleaf over another Maduro, perhaps, or
over what was the other one? Sorry, I didn't get that.
Like I was just throwing out examples like San Andreas Maduro.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so out of Maduro wrapper, Connecticut Broadleaf is my favorite. That's just personal preference. If that, I think that's the easiest way I could answer your question. If I smoke a Maduro type cigar, I'll smoke a Broadleaf. And so I wanted to be able to express my take on what I would want in a Broadleaf. I wanted to be able to express that because I really enjoy that wrapper when it's done right.
Yeah, that's Broadleafs. I've kind of joked around before about Broadleaf. That consumers love Broadleaf, brand owners and manufacturers love Broadleaf, but the people who hate Broadleaf are the rollers, because the dexterity of the leaf is just awful. But it makes for just an amazing cigar. So they have to kind of grit and bear through and deal with it and everything there. I think every cigar roller says a prayer at night, that one day, someday soon, the broadleaf trend will go away, so that they can stop having to roll cigars with it, because it is such a frustrating tobacco leaf. But God, like I said, it just smokes so great. Really fantastic to try that when it does come out. Mo, when are you expecting to release that?
That's a good question. I don't like to pigeonhole myself into timelines, but it should be before IPCPR next year.
Oh, well, fantastic! Yeah, man, that's great. It may have just happened, but it's just around the corner, as they always say. So that's great. That's
right.
Great.
Yeah, it's close. It's funny because you said something very important to me right now. You used the word trend. Okay. And to me, that's a very interesting term to use when you're talking about cigars. One thing that I did not want for these blends to be was trendy. These are what I believe to be classic, timeless blends. That these are great cigars today, they're going to be great cigars tomorrow, and they're going to be great cigars 20 years from now. That they appeal to a broad range of people and can stand the test of time, if you will.
Yeah.
That's the way I would describe these blends, is that they really are timeless, in my opinion. And it's sometimes you have that temptation to be trendy, right? To try to follow a trend or what's hot or what's really could but to me, it's we're trying to build something over the long haul, you know,
Right.
and something that will stand the test of time. So that's another way this goes with patina, right? So
Right, of course.
it's just it's not just the sense of like, okay, it's our experiences, whatever, but even is on things that have stayed through that have stood the test of time, that are things that are old and still standing and still cool. And that's kind of how the cigars are gonna, you know, in my opinion, that's how I want them to be. I want them to be cool 10 years from now. When people are smoking cigars, like, man, that patina stuff is just, I could pick that up anytime and smoke it, and it's money. You know,
Absolutely.
that's what I want.
I think there's something to be said about that. Just to kind of continue the idea of trends. You know, there have been a lot of trends in this industry. You know, and that's something that just even like a couple of years ago, and like I said, there's kind of a renaissance going on right now with Connecticut's, so it's not as taboo as it was, but just like 2 years ago, you know, if you had said, you know, 2-3 years ago, if you had said, you know, like, hey, you know, I'm starting a brand and one of my flagship blends is going to be a Connecticut, you know, the collective cigar consumer group would just roll their eyes with it. You're like, oh, another Connecticut. Well, that's just what we need, blah, 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 blah. But the stuff that has kind of come out, you know, I mean, everything from Highclere Castle with Nicholas Malio, the Themis from Protocol Cabaraqueño, the Crux Epicure, the Patina Connecticut. These are in the show. It isn't, you know, it isn't the Macanudo, that flavor components that everybody, you know, associates with it. You know, that's a classic flavor, and, you know, still one of the most popular cigars in the world. So obviously they're doing something right, but it's not for everybody. And for that someone that likes that creaminess and that lighter body, but doesn't want to smoke a Macanudo, doesn't have to do that anymore, because there are so many fantastic Patina Connecticut. And so I really think that it's really awesome that, even though, again, that this renaissance is kind of going on, like when you were first starting, that wasn't the case. And so you didn't shy away from it. You wanted to go after that classic blend and blends that were really going to be something, like you said, would stand the test of time. And I mean, dude, talk about, you should have fucking bought a lottery ticket back then too. Cause I mean, look how awesome that's going right now.
Yeah. Kind of funny, man. You know, the biggest thing is that you always want to be anticipatory, to the extent that you can, right? You always want to be on the lookout for what's going on. It's funny because I smoke everything. Like all those cigars you mentioned, I've smoked them. And I love to see what's going on, what other people are doing. I mean, there's so many creative people out there that are doing some really, really cool stuff with different blends. So I love to appreciate that stuff too. But at the same time, you got to find and make your own identity, if that makes sense. And so that's what I strive for. So even though this is a little bit of a different take on the Connecticut, and there's some other different takes on the Connecticut, I feel all of those cigars that you named and the Patina are all unique in their own different way.
Absolutely. It was something that Fred Rui told me one time, Fred Rui of Nomad Cigars. You know, Fred told me, and I think he said this plenty of times to a lot of different people. It's not like we were having a private conversation, or if this is, I'm not blowing a secret on his path, but he was saying how, you know, there's so many Rockstar blends out there. There's so many Rockstar cigars that he smokes owners and manufacturers out there that only smoke their stuff, and not dogging that either. Yeah. But to me, and you know, I can't speak from that perspective, so I don't really know. Claudio or Master Blender, therefore I wouldn't just stick to my own stuff. I don't know if I could. I don't know. I can't speak with that perspective, but I just know that I'm so much a fan of just what everyone else is doing that I would just love to see what other people are doing. And if you can't, you know, I mean, cigars are so enjoyable. I mean, how could you not admit other people's are good too? You know, you don't have to say they're better. I mean, this is a competition still, right? But I mean, They're
Right.
they're good in they're good in different ways.
Sure. I'll tell you what, Barrett, you bring up a really good point, and that's, look, my biggest fear is that my palate becomes one-dimensional, and then everything that patina comes out with starts to be similar, right? And this is not scientific. I don't know if this is true, but I always like to keep my palate guessing, trying new things, to keep it so it doesn't become one-dimensional, like this is all that I like. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely.
So if I allow myself to become that way, then everything will be so similar across the lines. And although you want a consistent take on a different on a given wrapper, regardless of the wrapper, there's always going to be that patina spin on that wrapper. But but they're going to be different, and you always, in my opinion, have to challenge yourself to always seek out different things that hit your palate different ways. They give your palate that total experience from the cigar, that when you inhale the cigar, you're getting this rush of flavor, but you're also tasting it on the way out. It's not like a one-dimensional flavor. It's a multi-layered experience. That's extremely important to me. And that's what I always, and when Claudio and I talk, and, he's big on that too, tickling all the senses, if you will. So that's really what we go for, man. You just want that layered flavor, if that makes sense.
I actually, and again, I want to apologize to everyone, including apologize to you too, Mo. It looks like we are still having some connection issues, but could you say that last part one more time? I'm so sorry.
Oh, about the layered flavor, like the layers of flavor in the cigar?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so just what I had said was, you want that total experience as a consumer, right? When I inhale a cigar, I want to be hit with flavor, and then when I exhale, I want to still have that flavor come through. Right. I don't want to like inhale, flavor's gone, and I'm just blowing smoke out. It's a multi-layered flavor profile that tickles kind of all of the senses, if you will. And that's big, that's something that really Claudio hammers, and what we were going for in all of this, in terms of how we wanted to execute the vision of what we wanted these blends to be. So, man, that's important to me.
I think that's something that's really going to be showcased as you continue to grow with Claudio specifically, because I think that is something that is really extra special. His background with Davidoff, all those years with the Kellner family, who talk about the science, talk about the palate and the balance of the sweet and the spice, and even the sour and the acidity, like how all those parts of the tongue and those parts of the palate play together, and how a cigar needs to stimulate the whole thing. And it's just listening to you talk there for a second, I was just like, man, he's talking about that science about the behind the palate, and how it all comes together and creates a beautiful blend. This sounds so obnoxious and arrogant, but when I started smoking cigars with one of my friends, and he was telling me, he's like, I want to learn to have a palate, is basically what it came down to. And so I said, well, you gotta smoke stuff. And I said, you have to learn to identify, what you feel like it tastes like. Okay. It's not enough to say that it's something is sweet. What is it sweet like? It's not, what does it remind you of? And, we could spend another 10 hours on, people's, different, oh, that's definitely an apple sweetness and not a, and not a berry sweetness. I mean, just like, we could just spend, decades on that. But
come on, Bear, isn't that palate specific, man? I mean, really, okay, I taste sweetness. Does it really matter what kind of sweetness I?
No, and that's my
point. I'm agreeing with you 100%. Like, dude, it's okay. You got sweetness. I don't need to know. We don't need to go into like, it's Dove chocolate sweetness. Like, come on,
right?
As opposed to Hershey's. You know what I mean?
And I nerd out with the best of them on pinpointing different points, because again, I'm very nostalgic, and I think that's what cigars really are really great for me is because a lot of different flavors and a lot of different scents and stuff, they remind me of different points of my life. You know, when I smoked the Todos Los Dias on air with Coop, I was telling him, I was like, oh man, I taste real nice spiciness. It tastes like chilies. It actually tastes like Fresno chilies. And he kind of smirked at me on air. It was kind of funny. And I was like, no, dude, let me tell you why it's Fresno chilies and not jalapeno and not serrano and not anything else, is because my grandmother used to make Spanish rice, and she would do fire roasted Fresno chilies, and she would also chop raw ones and garnish the rice with raw Fresno chili, and it would be roasted. So I know, I mean, ate that dish 1,000 times as a child, so I know what it tastes like, and so that's the kind of spiciness that I got off that cigar. So that's why I could say, hey, it's Fresno chilies. But I digress, though. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, somebody else is going to say, well, this reminds me of my childhood when I had jalapenos.
Exactly.
Right?
No, exactly.
So that's what I'm saying, is that everybody, people are going to have an individual take on what that flavor means to their palate, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And that's the thing that I was going with this guy, was just like, you know, I was teaching him some stuff, and he started having a really great palate. And we had a discussion not too long ago where he was telling me, we were smoking cigars stuff, and he just kept telling me about, like, he kept tasting the same note over and over again. And to your point about not having a stagnant palate, not having that stale kind of experience. And I was like, man, dude, I was like, if that's what you're tasting in every single cigar, I was like, man, we need to get you you need to start branching out or something, man. Cause there's a whole other world of, you know, of flavor notes out there. And if that's all you're tasting, then we got to figure something out. But it's interesting. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say that it's funny because a lot of, and that's the reason I said what I said, is because a lot of newer smokers get intimidated when they start reading these reviews and, oh, this, and I picked up that. And they think that if they pick up something different, that they're wrong. Well, they're not necessarily wrong. It's just what you tasted, right? And so I don't like to see guys or ladies get intimidated by cigar smoking, or get discouraged because they're not tasting the same thing that this guy is tasting, or that lady's tasting, or that guy's tasting. Does that make sense?
Oh, of course.
It's okay if you taste something different.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think reviews have a valuable place, because you can kind of, if you read enough of them, you kind of come to agree and disagree with different ones. And so you're like, okay, well, if I'm reading Coop stuff, for example, and man, like he's had really great reviews for these cigars that I really enjoy, and the ones he didn't like or didn't like as much, I really didn't enjoy.
Who's this? Sorry, Barry.
Coop. Coop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, so obviously my palate's similar to his, whereas, or maybe the reverse is true. Like, man, he gave that cigar a 94 and I thought that was trash, but this cigar that he gave an 87 to, I friggin' love. I think it's the best thing ever. That's something that I've kind of steered away from, like the number kind of thing. And I just look at the makeup of the cigar, the tobaccos that are used, because I know what I like, and flavor profiles that I enjoy in a cigar. And I kind of go with that. Because when I was first teaching myself, I kind of did the worst thing you could possibly do. I picked up a magazine, I would smoke a cigar, and I would try to identify the flavors that I was reading about. And totally the dumbest thing you could ever do. But it was just like, oh yeah, that vanilla is there, man. I got it. But like, as I started smoking more and more, I started learning more about the tobaccos. And then what I started doing was I would get the magazine or the website or whatever, and I would see the cigar that they were reviewing or doing a rating on, and I wouldn't look at the score or wouldn't look at the notes or anything. Although, in Cigar Aficionado, it's quite obvious which ones they give higher rankings to. They're on the top of the page, but I wouldn't look at either one of them, and I would grab a couple off the shelf and I would smoke, and I write my own notes, and I would compare it to what was published. And then I just stopped doing it altogether and just started writing notes, writing my own thoughts on it. Because like you said, it's all, again, I get Fresno chilies, you get jalapenos. In at the end of the day, what's the difference,
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a spicy cigar. It's what you got.
Yeah, right. And that's the thing, man, is like, I've had guys come up to me and be like, "Oh man, I smoked a patina and this is what I got out of it," and I'm like, "Oh, no kidding," because that's not what I get out of it. I smoke it, but dude, that's really cool, you know. And so it's very interesting. That is, and I don't want to. People ask me, "What can I expect to taste out of this cigar?" And I always respond, "I'm not going to tell you what to taste. You're going to taste what you're going to taste. I want you to tell me what you taste." Because if I cloud their judgment and they're smoking a cigar and they don't taste it, and they're going to think either they were missing something or I lied to them, or something like that. So I like people to take that journey on their own.
You know, and I think that's really great advice. I mean, I think both, you know, both styles work when you're kind of selling your own stuff. I've seen people take your approach to it, and it works incredibly well. And I've seen other people be like, "No, you're going to taste like, you know, steak and New York cheesecake, and it's going to be the best experience of your life." They kind of have fun with it almost, right. You know. And then there's the people that have it take it serious, you know, the jokesters, and then there's people that take it serious and are like, you know, like, well, this is what I get out of it. You know, they have a little bit more of a specific conversation, but it's still open ended, kind of the way you leave it as well. Like, well, just tell me what you think. Tell me what you think about it. And you know, I think that one of the best things that any cigar brand owner or cigar manufacturer can do, in my opinion, when they're at an event or smoking with people they don't know, or even with people they do know, is ask them what they think. And now there's going to be enough of the kiss ass around to kind of cloud a little bit of it. But every so often and every once in a while, you're going to get that candid response, not necessarily negative, not necessarily positive, but you're going to get that candid response of, and really find out what people really think about your stuff. And case in point, I was asked one of the very first cigar events that I worked at in the retail sector, a very, very big event for a larger manufacturer, and the brand owner asked me what I thought of his new release, and I, you know, after wetting my pants, you know, collected myself and told him what I thought, and he's just like, "Well, that's really fascinating. I never would have thought it that way." And I'm, you know, and I'm a, you know, child at this point, so I'm like, "Oh God," you know. And but I took that lesson, and it kind of takes on it's kind of carried all the way to this point of what I just said to you, Mo, was that I think that's probably one of the best things that a brand owner or a manufacturer can do is ask them, because every once in a while, and I'm not saying my response was one of these examples, but every once in a while you're going to get that candid response that's going to give you just that awesome insight that you weren't expecting, and you're going to be able to use it for the rest of your work. It's going to be awesome.
Dude, talking to people that not only work at the shops but also hang out at the shops is always great feedback. Especially like you said, those guys that take the time to give you a detailed, thoughtful response. That's beautiful. I love that. I love when guys engaged and really want to like talk about this stuff. It's always fun, man. I always try to take advantage of that.
Absolutely.
That's what it's all about, dude.
Absolutely. Yeah. Couldn't agree more. Well, Mo, I really appreciate you coming on. I can't believe all this time has completely flown by. It's been fantastic. Just really appreciate your time this evening. Appreciate you bearing through the technical difficulties. Everyone that's been watching and listening, go out there, ask if you're a retailer, check out patinacigars.com. He's got a great list of retailers on there. One near you for sure. If not, give one of those retailers a call and give them a try. They're absolutely fantastic. The Connecticut got my stamp of approval. You definitely need to give that a shot. And especially if you're a mild to medium bodied smoker fan, it's sensational. The complexity is just outrageous. We've been talking about it pretty much this whole time. So patinacigars.com, check out the locations there. And if your shop is not on that list, ask your local retailer to carry patina cigars, and Mo will be very appreciative of it. So he'll be really excited to sell his cigars so that you can have access to them. So, Mo, again, from the bottom of my heart, sincerely, thank you so much for joining us tonight. This was absolutely fantastic. We'll definitely have to have you back. And maybe when that broadleaf comes out, we'll have a kickoff party on the media side over on ELOSOFUMARTAKES over here. It'll be fantastic.
Awesome, man. Yeah, no, dude, thank you so much for having me. It's always a privilege to be able to come on and talk about this, especially being a smaller brand, for someone like yourself to give me a shot to come on and talk about it. I really appreciate that. So thank you.
You're quite welcome. The privilege was certainly mine, Mo. It's very humbling for you to say those words. So thank you so much. Again, we really appreciate everyone that tuned in. Like your love your comments, likes, and shares. Be sure to check out our upcoming schedule. Next week, we will have Rainier Lorenzo of HVC Cigars on for our 43rd take, and we will have our NFL preview show the first week of September. So awesome stuff to come. Some great people on the schedule as well, so be sure to check out our Facebook page for our schedule. Again, check out patinacigars.com for your local retailers that carry them, and pick up some of Mo's awesome cigars. Again, this was our 42nd take. We've done 42 takes on ELOSOFUMARTAKES, and it's been a fantastic ride. This was the most recent of it. Maali of Patina Cigars was my guest. As always, I'm Barry Duplessis, live from the Casa Cueva studios of Euless, Texas. It was our pleasure, and we'll see you next time.